Okay, last week we covered the top 10 draft classes of all time, so I thought it only fitting that this week we take a look at the worst 10 draft classes of all time. Stay tuned to find out which year of the modern era produced the worst draft class ever. Okay, first let's walk through the data set. The criteria we'll be using to rank the draft classes will be the number of Hall of Fame players, the number of All-Pro selections, and the number of Pro Bowl selections. Now, based on the average NFL career length of 3.3 years and due to the Hall of Fame criteria, we're going to be measuring draft classes from 1970 through 2015. Okay, let's break down the FGV, or the Football Guy valuation. Hall of Fame players are going to score 7 points, All-Pro selections score 3 points per selection, and Pro Bowl appearances score 1 point per appearance. Now let's get started. Okay, coming in at the 10th worst draft class of all time is 1978. There were 487 draft picks selected in 1978, which produced 3 Hall of Famers: Earl Campbell, James Lofton, and Ozzie Newsome. Other notable players for the year include Todd Christensen, John Jefferson, Wes Chandler, Al Baker, Clay Matthews, and Art Still. There were a total of 19 player contributors, or 3.9% of the draft class. They had 14 All-Pro selections and 59 Pro Bowl appearances between them. 1978 comes in at number 10 with an FGV score of 122. The number 9 worst draft class of all time is 1970. The 1970 draft saw 442 players selected and produced 2 Hall of Fame players, Mel Blount and Terry Bradshaw. A total of 26 players, or 5.88% of the draft class, contributed to the 12 All-Pro selections and 69 Pro Bowl appearances. Other notable contributors include Jake Scott, Lamar Parrish, and Mark Mosley. 1970 scored an FGV of 119 in a three-way tie with both our number 8 and number 7 draft classes. All right, the 8th worst draft class of all time, and one of 2 classes from the 1990s, 1999. The 99 NFL Draft had 253 players selected, producing 2 Hall of Famers in Champ Bailey and Edgerrin James. Roughly 9.88% of the draft class, or 25 players, were contributors to 12 All-Pro selections and 69 Pro Bowl appearances. Other notable contributors include Torrey Holt, Joey Porter, Javon Curse, Ricky Williams, David Boston, Donovan McNabb, Donald Driver, Dante Culpepper, Dre Bly, and Aaron Smith. 1999 comes in at number 8, narrowly beating out 1970 and losing the tiebreaker with our number 7 draft class with an FGV score of 119. Now, coming in as our 7th worst draft class of all time, 1986. There were 333 draft picks selected in 86, which produced just 1 Hall of Famer in Charles Haley. Some other notable players for the year include Pat Swilling, Tom Newberry, Clyde Simmons, John Offerdahl, Leslie O'Neal, Brent Jones, Neil Anderson, Will Wolford, Seth Joyner, and Bo Jackson. 1986 also had the most contributors of any draft class on our list with 32 players, or 9.61% of the draft class. The contributors combined for 14 All-Pro selections and 70 Pro Bowl appearances. 1986 comes in at number 7 with an FGV score of 119. Okay, our first draft class from the 2000s, 2008, claims the number 6 spot. The 2008 draft saw 252 players selected and failed to produce a Hall of Fame player. 28 players, or 11.11% of the draft class, contributed to 14 All-Pro selections and 76 Pro Bowl appearances. Notable contributors include Jamal Charles, Calais Campbell, Dwayne Brown, Jake Long, Chris Johnson, Gerard Mayo, Deshaun Jackson, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, and Jonathan Stewart. 2008 scored an FGV score of 118. And coming in as the 5th worst draft class of all time, and the class with the most Hall of Famers on our list, and tied for the least number of AP selections, is 1976. There were 487 draft picks selected in 1976, which produced 5 Hall of Famers: Mike Haynes, Steve Largent, Leroy Selman, Harry Carson, and Jackie Slater. Some other notable players for the year include Gary Fensick and Pat Thomas, each with 1 AP selection and 2 Pro Bowl appearances. Other notable players include Chuck Muncy, Randy Cross, Mike Pruitt, and Kim Bocamper. In all, there were 20 player contributors, or 2.46% of the draft class, to 6 All-Pro selections and 64 Pro Bowl appearances. 1976 comes in at number 5 with an FGV score of 117. Coming in as the number 4 worst draft class of all time, 2015. Now, it should be noted that some of these players are still active and this draft class could improve their position. There were 256 draft picks selected in 2015, producing 0 Hall of Famers. A total of 31 players, or 12.1% of the draft class, contributed to 11 All-Pro selections and 58 Pro Bowl appearances. Notable contributors include Amari Cooper, Todd Gurley, Stephon Diggs, Tyler Lockett, Daniel Hunter, and Vic Beasley. 2015 comes in at number 4 with an FGV score of 91. Now, another class from the 1990s claims the number 3 spot, 1992. There were 336 draft picks selected in 92, which failed to produce a Hall of Famer as of yet. A total of 26 players, or 7.73% of the draft class, contributed to 8 All-Pro selections and 59 Pro Bowl appearances. Notable contributors include Darren Woodson, Troy Vincent, Michael Bates, Chester McLaughlin, Levon Kirkland, Jimmy Smith, Dale Carter, and Robert Porcher. 1992 comes in at number 3 with an FGV score of 83. All right, we're getting down to it. Our number 2 worst draft class of all time, and the last class from the 2000s, 2009. There were 256 draft picks selected in 2009, which also failed to produce a Hall of Famer as of yet. A total of 26 players, or 10.16% of the draft class, contributed to the 6 All-Pro selections and 55 Pro Bowl appearances. Notable contributors include LaShawn McCoy, Clay Matthews, Alex Mack, Brian Arakpo, Malcolm Jenkins, Brian Cushing, and Matthew Stafford, as well as Percy Harvin. 2009 comes in at number 2 with an FGV score of 73. And now, our number 1 worst draft class of all time, and just 1 year removed from the famed quarterback class, 1984. The 1984 draft class saw 336 draft selections and failed to produce any Hall of Famers, and had the lowest number of combined Pro Bowl appearances for any draft class. A total of 24 players, or 7.14% of the draft class, contributed to 8 All-Pro selections and 48 Pro Bowl appearances. Notable contributors include Wilbur Marshall, Boomer Esiason, Carl Banks, Irving Fryer, Lewis Lips, Ernest Viner, Joel Hilgenberg, and Greg Bell. 1984 comes in as the worst draft class of all time with an FGV score of 72. And those, my friends, are the worst draft classes of all time. So what do you think? I know it's hard to have a favorite worst draft class, but let me know in the comments who you think the biggest draft bust of all time is. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.